Roll it. So welcome to what we call Counselor Corner Live. My name is April Seither. I am currently the Town Council Chair. This effort is originally organized by the Town Council Communications and Community Outreach Committee, which in the past I have also chaired. John and I have run probably 10 of these Counselor Corner Live sessions. We don't have an agenda. There's no slide deck. There's no presentation. We are here to listen to the residents, to listen to your concerns, to guide the conversation. When we have great turnout like we have tonight, one of the things that we have found is really helpful is if someone is saying something that you agree with, it's perfectly acceptable. Nod, hear, voice your support for what they are saying if it's something that you agree with. There's no set time limit for any one person in terms of your ability to speak, but we do have a full house and we have 2 hours. My only hard fast rule is 8 o'clock. We are out like trout because after 2 hours, we all start to get a little punch drunk and so 2 hours is the limit. And so with that, for tonight's session, I will go ahead and let my fellow counselors do introductions here in just a second. But for tonight's session, what really grounded the reason why we invited you all here tonight is because the council is working towards our 2025 council goal to develop a affordable housing and workforce housing policy. Right now, we have systems in place for what the council needs to do if an applicant for affordable housing comes forward to us, and there's a lengthy public process in place. But what we need to do is make sure that the number of permits that we issue and the types of permits that we issue align with the values that our community is hoping to see. And that is the work of the council. That being said, we have spent a lot of time becoming content area experts. We're lucky to have Counselor Fellows who does this as a profession on the council this year, working and understanding the laws and the regulations and the rules that bind not just the town of Scarborough, but all municipalities. And so if there are questions about what's legal and what the council can and can't do and what levers we have available to us and which ones we really can't pull, like those are the kinds of things that I hope you leave here tonight, especially if you have concerns about the way that this council is approaching growth. So with that, I will go ahead and let John introduce himself.
Hi, I'm John Anderson. I've been on the town council now for 5 years. I'm the vice chair and I sit on our finance committee. I chair our finance committee. I sit on the communications committee and I forget what other one I sit on. Is that it?
That might be it.
That just might be it. Okay.
Fair hearing?
I know.
Maybe. Corey Fellows, I joined the council this past November, formerly served on the planning board and long range planning committee. I serve on the ordinance committee, as well as the appointments and nomination committee, and chair of the rules and policy committee.
Hi, I'm Larry King. I've been on the council T-1 day. I appreciate April including me in this, but I actually get sworn in tomorrow.
Scott Darby, I was on the council since last November. Harbour committee.
You need to speak up, please. Can I speak up a little bit? Because
I'm on the Harbour committee and communication committee.
So as you can see, one of the challenges of being in the public safety classroom is that it's great for space, but it's not so great for acoustics. I have no problem projecting my voice. As a former teacher and a mom, I know I speak very loudly. So what I would ask that when you're speaking, if you could please speak up, and if you tend to have a quieter voice, I'm happy to reiterate your comment or your question so that other folks can hear. If you're really having a difficult time hearing, move to the front. Right now, the meeting is being recorded so that it can be published for people to watch later on, but we are not live streaming and we will not be taking any kind of online participation. So everyone who's here in the room tonight, you are our core participants this evening. So with that, is there anybody who would like to get us started? Yes, sir. And if
I get started.
I appreciate it. And if you want to introduce yourself, that's great. This is not a formal public meeting. I'm not taking meeting notes, but I think it benefits all of us if you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Victor Rodriguez. I am a Scarborough resident. And I know I'm going to talk about the same subject over and over, but I think it is important today that we have really an open and candid conversation. I don't oppose affordable housing. I've been involved at least 50 years in the banking side through the Community Reinvestment Act. So I've been involved, I know that how that works, what doesn't work. But my question is, we are building too many affordable houses. Okay, and I don't mind that. I like to be socially responsible and help the ones who needs to be helped. But it gets to have a limitation. Because most of these people that do affordable housing, they don't pay the fair share of what is the rent. They pay according to whatever the law is allowable. While I have worked all my life to buy a house, to bring a family, and have a peaceful, whatever years I have left, and I pay taxes. And my taxes, I guess the sky is the limit, maybe not. Maybe is the universe the limit. But I see my taxes going up more and more and more. And when I drive, I see a lot of affordable housing in Saco, here, there, and everywhere. I don't mind if the town of Scarborough, our residents have that need. No question, I will help them any way I can to do it. But when I see a corporation that does not even is in Scarborough or South Portland housing and building all this massive affordable housing at the expense of the taxpayers, because they are selling this to investors for tax credit. I don't have the wealth and means to afford that investment, to get the tax benefit, so we call it. But we need to be more responsible to us. In other communities, when they do this massive development, the developer contributes to the town in many other ways, by building roads, by contributing to the schools, to the safety, police, whatever it is, but is a very organized development. No, because I put an application, I'm gonna be going after that. And again, I do support affordable housing for all the people that really have that need. But I like to have it, if we're in Scarborough, I like to have 100% people in Scarborough to get that direct benefit. I don't want people coming from South Portland or whatever other area of that is not our town to come and get that benefit. I don't think it's fair to us that we have worked so hard to have a home and I think that's what my concern it is. You know, and I can go on. Well, I know it's 2 hours. But I'm not gonna go 2 hours. I'm probably gonna run out of saliva, you know, but I do want to make that very clear to all of you. Now, you said there's goals. Well, what is the goal that the town has for affordable housing?
That's the question.
You know, how many housing units? 2, 3, 4, 500, 1,000? What is the limit? You know, they built this dolphin house over there, here over there in Mossy and Gorham Road. Massive apartments going on there. Everywhere that you go, they're building apartments. So again, I would like to see the board, everyone, to take a hard look with your heart, know the economic benefit to what is right for our town. We work hard. We want to enjoy that, continue forever. I don't have a home in Florida. So I'm here, you know, 365 days of the year. And at least I want to make sure when I go out the door every day is because I love this community, what they stand, what they do for everyone.
So I think that, I'm not asking for a miracle, I'm just asking to please do not allow massive, when you have Saco doing massive construction, here, massive construction. What is a town that's gonna allow in 2025, 2026, 27 in the future? Are we gonna be surrounded like other cities by townhouses, by apartments? What happened to the really nice community? And the schools, every year, we have to vote. So we want more money for the schools, more money for the police, more money for the. I don't mind, but everybody has to pitch in. These developers had at one point in time pitch in and put money. If they want to do business here in town, they have to be 100% into it. And they have to work.
Okay, so, and I'm seeing head nodding and here's. One thing that I am gonna give this conversation a little more structure, which is you said about 9 great things that I think people would really like more information on or to hear a council response on. And so what I would ask is if you would like to make a comment, try and keep it to 1 or 2 questions or comments that we can kind of engage with, and then we'll go more into the
I'm
comments.
happy to share my thoughts. It's more structured.
No, oh,
Would you
no, I'm not,
avoid-
oh, absolutely.
You know,
I'm not
I-
criticizing.
Have a glass of wine.
I'm not criticizing you at all, sir. It's just, I'm taking notes as fast as I
Oh,
possibly
okay.
can.
I just want to make sure because I spent a long time in banking. I was directly involved with the Reinvestment Act, you know, that for affordable housing, low income, at that time they call it low income. Now we are very more into the new language, it's affordable housing, still the same, but you know, it's affordable housing. Some of these projects are fantastic, no question about it. It has served the town, the city, everything. But also, the private sector needs to get involved in this one. Why is the private sector doesn't get involved? Because there's no money into it for the private sector. If there's no tax credits, do you think people will be building like that? No, there has to be a motivation. And that's the only word that I can find, which, you know, if maybe it's not the right word sometimes, is greed, corporate greed. And, you know, it's a tough word to swallow, but it is it's true, purely corporate greed. You know, and I want us to benefit. I want us to have that. Right now, I'm trying to get a pacemaker when my tax comes out in October. What's gonna be, if anything, increased? Trust me, it's gonna be a point that, I don't know, 1 or 2 pacemakers gonna do the trick. But it's gonna be, you know, and I know Mr. Butcher, he's been a very kind individual. It's been a pleasure working with him, and he knows that probably, like my grandchildren call me, an old grumpy person. But, you know, I take the title with pride, because it's not that I'm grumpy, but I like to express support for our town and make sure that everybody is in the same page, in sync. Is everybody in agreement? I go with everybody. I'm not gonna go against the majority. I go with it, so.
Okay, I don't find you grumpy at all. I find you full of questions and so lively and ready to engage.
This
Ready?
lady called me grumpy, so.
All right,
So,
ready. Okay,
Ready.
so now I'm gonna flick it back over this way because I think a lot of what was said is maybe on the minds and tip of the tongue of some of the other people in attendance. And so I'm gonna kind of shoot through some of the things and then I'm gonna turn it over
and
to,
before I go,
yes,
I
sir.
want to thank everybody for listening to me.
You're welcome.
I wanna sit down and be quiet and sip it.
Okay. Okay, so I was trying to take notes. I see John is much better at being on the computer and taking notes. So I'm sure you captured a lot of the same things I did. First and foremost, I want to clear up a misconception, which is that South Portland Housing Authority is related to the city or town, city of South Portland, and that they are trying to do a development here in Scarborough. it's an unfortunate name. It would be like calling yourself the South Portland House of Pizza and then trying to open a pizza place in Scarborough. It's just in the name. And so this is not the city of South Portland's housing authority trying to build houses in Scarborough. They are their own 403B nonprofit, then that just happens to be their name. That doesn't mean that they are a Scarborough developer. I'm not trying to say that they are, but they are not the city of South Portland trying to build housing in Scarborough.
Where are they based?
I don't know.
In South Portland.
In South Portland.
That's their headquarters.
Okay.
We got a lot of that going on.
I mean, but there are plenty of people who do business in Scarborough that are not Scarborough-based businesses. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily a knock against them, but I do hear that one quite a bit. The next thing that I heard was priority for Scarborough residents, and this came up the other day during our finance committee discussion. And so I'm actually going to put Corey on the spot, if you don't mind, to just speak a little bit about what that means. Why can't we give priority to Scarborough residents, existing Scarborough residents, right? That's the request, is that it would be for existing Scarborough residents.
The simple answer is that it would violate fair housing laws, and the state of Maine will not allow it. We're gonna,
Caller, please.
Can you-
the short answer is it's against state law. State law will not allow it. When you're utilizing public funds, including state funds, state and or federal funds to develop something, you cannot give preferences based on residency. Some states interpret that and enforce that a little bit differently. My organization does work in Massachusetts and elsewhere. The state of Massachusetts is a little bit more lax, and they will allow a certain percentage of preference for people who either live or work in the town, only at initial lease up, and then going forward, that does not apply. The state of Maine, Maine Housing takes a more, I guess you'd call it, conservative approach to it, and they do not allow it. I think I've been checking around with peers who have worked with Maine Housing quite a bit. And there are, small examples of where there've been, small exceptions to that, but generally speaking, it's not allowed under state law. It's something that I know in my organization, we always advocate for within reason, but that's the answer. So I know that the representatives from South Portland Housing Authority have had that question come up, and they've spoken to it as well.
Thanks, Corey. How many developments / workforce or affordable units do we have? And so I think one of the things that is important to distinguish is a developer who wishes to come before the council for a workforce or affordable housing CEA has to go through the council. Many of the other apartments and developments that you are seeing around town were zoned for that type of development and did not come through the council for approval. They go to the planning board. And that's not a distinction that, can be taken lightly, because the affordable and workforce housing has to go through a very rigorous process in order to be approved by the council, because they are asking for that tax subsidy. And so there is a difference. And so part of my concern as a counselor is that people lump those two types of developments into one bucket and say the town is growing too fast, or there's too much development happening. And so one of the things that I'm curious as this conversation evolves is there a distinction in people's minds between workforce and affordable housing versus not being pleased about some of the other apartments and multifamily units that people are seeing pop up? John, can you speak a little bit about impacts and this idea that developers aren't paying their fair share?
Yeah,
That's one that we hear a lot too.
the one thing that I think the town has in place, and we've updated them and we continue to update them, is something called impact fees. So any new developer that comes into Scarborough, there's fees associated with school impact, traffic impact, and other things. So that is a way we do enforce making sure that they pay their fair share. So when they come in, they have to pay those extra fees in order to build their development. When it comes to projects like this one and any other economic development CEA, we do run a fiscal impact analysis to really understand what the impact is to our community and to the taxpayers. So for the project that's being requested right now, and at the last finance committee, we looked at what would happen if we agreed to give them what they requested, which was a 75% tax rebate every 30 years. And we looked at 50% and what it would take for them to essentially break even. So that way there's no extra subsidy by taxpayers. So if there was a 75% CEA, I believe it was somewhere around $200,000 that the town would be operating at a deficit where the community would have to make up for that deficit. If it was at 50%, they'd actually be operating at a surplus where they would be providing the community $600,000 over those 30 years. So again, we do look at that as we make our decision to figure out what we want to do. Like nobody wants to force any bad financial decisions that impacts the taxpayer, but that's an option for the council as we go and look at this tomorrow to figure out what is the right amount if the council wants to approve it or not. So we do look at that. And again, when it comes to fiscal impact, it's really about the cost to serve that we look at. So we look at the revenues that the project is going to bring in terms of taxes, excise revenue, different things that's going to be contributing to our budget. And then we look at the cost to serve and what it takes to service that particular development. So in the case of the project that's before us, the real big cost to serve, because this is a 55+ 1-bedroom senior restricted income project, is around fire services, which are also partially refundable. So again, there's some refunds that we get for these calls to serve these communities that tend to need them more. And so we are looking at all of those things to really understand what is the impact to people's pocketbooks. And at least in the case of this project, if it was 50%, it would be at a surplus. If it was at 75%, it would be at a deficit. Though there is some other complicated financial stuff that we look at in terms of tax sheltering and things like that, that could also benefit the community.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it back over to the room. Go ahead,
Well,
Richard.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll back up first. I think a major concern in town is overall growth.
Sure.
Whether you wanna call it, affordable, low income, regular type housing. The major concern in this town, and the last 2 surveys that you folks have put out, the number 1 issue has been growth in the town of Scarborough.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a pause.
After that?
Yep, I'm gonna do a pause.
Well-
So Richard says the number 1 issue is growth in the town. And it doesn't matter if we're talking workforce, affordable, apartments, single family. Okay, we hear you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Hold on. Hold on. Nope.
April, why don't you let us speak rather than trying to answer at every level that when someone says something?
Well, I think
Richard.
You're asking questions though.
Richard, hold on.
No, I made a statement.
Yeah.
I made a statement. I didn't-
Okay. Guys, listen.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids. You cannot scare me. We can all speak and take turns. The problem that I'm trying to address is when there are lots of people who are upset about something that I can correct. I have a hard time not wanting to address or correct. And it's not because you're uninformed. It's not because I disagree with your opinion. It's because I think if you're upset about the name of the company, I can rectify that. And I'm trying to be here and be helpful. That being said, we can't go back and forth, tit for tat, and I certainly don't want that. But if you just want me to turn it over to the room and I'll sit down and you all can take turns yelling at us for 2 hours, then that's fine. But I don't-
Be fair, nobody's been yelling.
Oh, I don't, and I mean,
I
but
didn't ask a question, I just.
no, Richard, and I would never imply that you were yelling. But if you want me to sit down and you all just want to talk
Yeah.
for 2 hours,
Well,
then I will sit down.
the one thing I think that is important for people to understand is like, what is actually within our control? And how
Right,
do we
and that's what I was
manage growth?
going
So I would like to just talk a little bit about the levers we have available to us. And I mean, again, part of this conversation may help inform where we go with those levers. So there's really three things in my mind that are really the levers of growth management in town. One is our comprehensive plan. One is the rate of growth ordinance. And the other one is our zoning. And so all of these are regulated by state law in terms of what we can and cannot do. So when it comes to our comprehensive plan, you know, there's a big, robust law that talks about all the things we need to do, the processes we need to go through. And it really establishes the vision of our community for where we want to direct and how we want to direct growth. So if you haven't read the comprehensive plan, I would encourage you guys to read that. The last one was updated in 2021. And so if there's things in there that you don't agree with, let us know, because we update it every 10 years, or we can always make an amendment. So in that comprehensive plan, there is a goal that says we want to have at least 10% of new development, new housing for affordable housing. So that is part of our goal. When it comes to the rate of growth ordinance, we are restricted at how many units we can actually develop based on our past history. So we have to look at the past 10 years, get that average, and then apply 105% to that. So that is by state law what we have to do. And also in state law, it says 10% of those projects also have to be for affordable housing. So really our goal in town is consistent with state law. So that has to direct us to some extent in terms of how many affordable housing projects we can have. The other thing is our zoning, and that's driven and guided by the comprehensive plan. And that's where we talk about what allowable uses are in different parts of town, what type of density, what types of units can be there. So all of that is guided and managed by our laws. And that's kind of what we have to work within when we want to manage the pace of growth. Now, recently there was a law passed by the state that essentially takes away our ability to manage the pace of growth in our designated growth areas. So that goes into effect July 2026. And so that's something that we as a community have to figure out. What does that mean for our zoning, or other things that we want to do to make sure that we're prepared to react to that? Because essentially right now, where we have those minimums, the state is now telling us that we cannot do that, that in our designated growth areas, specifically Oak Hill, Dunstan, and the Downs, we can no longer manage the pace of growth.
Why can't you change the designated area?
That is something we could do. I think
So the question was, why can't we change our designated growth areas?
that is something that the council will have to decide if that's what we want to do. We might have to get more specific. We're having the planner come tomorrow to talk about the rate of growth ordinance, what our past history is, and what we need to do with this new law in place. And again, I think the council will have to figure out more what we do. Like, it's kind of fresh off the press. It just started, or just got signed by the governor in June. And so we haven't really, as a body, meant to talk about it and decide how we want to
Why
approach
can't
it.
we have a 1-year break on any building?
Okay, so
Project?
a moratorium.
Yeah.
Okay, how many people are curious about a moratorium?
B, I
Okay.
would like to ask for a moratorium on all growth and development in the town of Scarborough until we can bring our environmental detrimental impact up, stop backfilling the marsh and paying off governmental agencies for square footage into the marsh. Think about the massive amount of irresponsible growth that you brought in so much. Our infrastructure cannot support it. It would be very important to address all of these points, and more importantly, involve the community, or let the community decide the growth, because what you're talking about in terms of growth and expansion and community is not our community. It never was, and I don't know how and when it changed. But suddenly, nothing here represents what it once was.
Right.
And I'm really hungry and tired, and I just got out of work, so I'm gonna have a dinner.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay,
Can I finish?
Richard, I'm gonna let Richard finish, and then, I just want to talk more about the idea of moratoriums.
I just backing up to the overall growth as an issue in town. I think that's a major issue for a lot of people. There's also the project that's in the forefront,
Marshfield.
Marshfield. As that lady just spoke, it's ideally named because it's sitting very close to the marsh, which I have heard many, many times, people say how valuable and beautiful asset it is. And not only is Marshfield, but I learned at the last planning board meeting, there's another project that's being run through the process that's even closer to the marsh. There's a 9 or 11 housing units that are being built off the Pine Point Road that back up to the marsh. We seem to be talking in circles. We have a care today and we don't tomorrow. There are many issues, I believe, with the proposed Marshfield apartments. I, for one, do not believe the traffic engineers, when he stood up and said that will have no impact to Route 1. That gentleman doesn't, I suggest he does not drive Route 1 very often. He says 55 and older people in today's world are probably most of them are still working. If they are, there's going to be more than 7 cars leave that facility between 6 and 8 o'clock or whatever, 7 and 9, whatever the drive time hours
Sure.
are. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Please don't allow things that, because there's no gives back. What is there, is it gonna become another whoops,
Wells.
like Haggis Parkway project? Another whoops that the taxpayers get to pay for many years? Please don't create a whoops, and it may have been no control, but that project, those apartments that are being built at 8 Corners, that is a disgrace to the town of Scarborough. Slight exaggeration. But when I can step out my front door and end up in the middle of the street, there's something wrong. And I just say, that's a slight exaggeration, but. And the last thing I'll leave, I would like John to explain to us. How giving back 50% of the taxes, how that is going to be a gift to the town of Scarborough of $600,000.
So, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was analysis done by Sedco. So again, they looked at the cost to serve, which again included that assumption around fire safety amongst other services that the town has to spend money for out of our budget. And then all the revenues that project brings in. And so if we gave 50% rebate for those taxes, the net impact of that would be over the 30 years of that project, a net positive $600,000 impact to our bottom line. So that's because of the type of development. 1-bedroom units just typically have lower cost to serve because you're not having to provide different services like. Yeah, but it's still breaking even, or it's doing better than it would otherwise. And I think the other thing people have to understand that if it wasn't this project, a qualified use that could be built in that area today could actually be even more expensive and more of a deficit for the town. So something like a 20-unit single family home development would actually be a higher cost to serve. They don't break even, they don't cover their costs. You know, unfortunately, it's very expensive for children in our community. That's a big tax driver there. And so if that were the case, you know, this community would be subsidizing a lot more than this project. So it's really about the alternative. Do you want to pay? Do you want to see a surplus and have this project be able to cover its cost, or do you want to pay for single family home development? Because that's what would be subsidized by the community.
Certain land concerns.
That's an option. That's an option, like no development, a moratorium, but
Because you are saying that you're saving money by building more, but it's more impact on the town in the long run because you're cramming all these houses together, so close together, so many housing units, everybody's living in a box. There's no family thing in mind where maybe we could have a house with a yard.
Yeah.
You're saying $600,000 for what?
well, I mean, again,
I mean,
it's,
you think that's an easy number for people to afford? And you know what? Mainers are kicked to the curb because nobody in Maine can afford that. You're bringing in people from out of state and you could say 600,000, but I'll tell you what, I bet you these developers are going hand in hand with equity firms and corporate investors. They're buying these apartments and these dwellings by the bulk.
Mhm.
And then they're turning around and renting them. And then they have trashy
Yeah.
property,
I-
people
Yeah.
that are, no, it's true. I hear people. that
I am
live in
not,
new-
I am not comfortable using disparaging language to describe anyone, please.
Well, I'm sorry, but everything is done out of state.
Yeah.
All of these people that handle these properties are from out of state.
well, I would say again, for this project, it's a nonprofit developer. And that these are income restricted seniors. I'm talking about the Marshview specific one. So this is a nonprofit, yeah.
Here.
That's-
Nonprofit.
It's good place. And then you've got Route 1 that's already jammed up already.
So.
And then, you know, there's only 2 interstates in Maine. So what is the point of all this development? 2 interstates. Where is everybody gonna go? Do you have an evacuation plan for all of this?
We do.
Especially when Route 1's flooded. Yeah,
We-
Route 1 can't handle what you have now.
We do have an evacuation plan. I'm gonna go to Allison. And then, is it about moratoriums, Allison?
No, I just
Okay.
respond to some of the.
I would love that.
Okay, so, I'm Allison Bristol, I live in David's Beach.
She's a frequent flyer of our meetings.
Top of meetings. And I wanted to respond to what Councilor Fellow said. It's absolutely true that the state has now made it illegal for to restrict, have any kind of resident, no restrictions on who can move into affordable housing. But this is new. When Jocelyn Place was built, the CEA that the town gave them had a qualifier in it that you had to be 55 and older, you had to live or work in Scarborough or South Park. And I have asked myself twice and have not gotten an answer. So to give us an idea of what might happen if Marshview Terrace gets built. What's the percentage of people at Jocelyn Place that moved in last year who are not from Scarborough? I think that would be an indicator, and South Florida Housing Authority Development Board has not answered that question. I think we as taxpayers who subsidize that, not asking for personal data, we're asking for a percentage, and I think if Scarborough taxpayers are subsidizing credit enhancement treatments, they deserve that answer. And, the other point that I, wanted to make was, we're talking about fair and equitable for developers. This is a big kettle of fish, but with the current rate of growth ordinance, and I know John will say, yeah, we redid it 2 or 3 times before we landed on the one that we have right now. So the current rate of growth ordinance allows for, 400 over a 3-year period at the dams, 75 over a 3-year period in area 1, I want to say, and then I can't remember what the other one was, but it comes out to 600 and I want to say 60 units every 3 years. But with the current rate of growth ordinance, what the town also did, which I think we need to look at and do away with, and I think that this is probably gonna be part of the discussion tomorrow night. They added a pool of affordable housing units that anybody could draw from. And if that number fell below 50, the council could replenish it at will. So how this has worked out with the Downs is that they get 400, and I understand the Down needs to be able to plan out. They can't go year to year to year and not have the permits in it. But they get 400. Their credit enhancement agreement says 10% of what they build has to be affordable. But now they can pull from this pool, so they're really getting 440 units, not 400. And then what also used to be in our growth ordinance was that single developer only had a certain percentage, could only get a certain percentage of growth permits. It used to be 20% for everybody but the Downs was getting 30%. So it's not Crossroads Holdings who's building houses in other parts of town. But it is the Risbara Brothers Construction Company, which is the same
Yeah.
developer. And they're getting permits to build around Scarborough. And what contribution are they making to affordable housing? And then my last point about this topic is that, I did look at the comprehensive plan before the meeting tonight, and the, impact fees or the in lieu of fees that go to the Scarborough Housing Alliance were last looked at in 2007. So how out of date are they? And that's, if people are gonna give money and building affordable housing, then that needs to be kicked up substantially. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's a
Great.
great suggestion.
Um,
For the, Allison, really great suggestions. I think you're right. We should look at the in lieu fees to see if those. Yeah, I was saying, I think the in lieu fees is definitely probably an area we need to look into.
I do not want the microphone for the record.
I might need it. Just the 660 that Allison referenced in terms of our rate of growth ordinance, again, that number is established by state law. So that was us operating at the minimum, looking at the 10-year average. The affordable housing portion was added because I think at the time the council felt like paving more room for affordable projects would be a good idea. My understanding is under LD 1829, we can no longer restrict the number of affordable housing units. So even though Allison, I think we might have, I'm sure we would have debated that. Well, I'm looking at our town planner because I think that was what was in our packet, where we were told that we would have to remove that. Is that a fair, not to put you on the spot?
We can figure it out
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we'll figure it out tomorrow. But I'm just saying, like, it's dynamic and we have to figure out what we're gonna do and.
75%, 50%, whatever that CEA might look like. So when they were, when they first came forward with the new version of this, the projection was in the first year of the 30, the taxes of 100% would be $70,000. So if they paid 20%, it was 17 and change. And my property taxes have skyrocketed. I'm not far away from that number. I mean, so how a developer with 50 units would pay $17,000 in taxes, and people in town are paying equal. And for people who are seniors who are trying to stay, I don't see how that's fair.
I don't know if Corey wants to address that. And again, I think what we're talking about is, again, income restricted housing for seniors that are 55 plus, that again, they can't get traditional financing for those types of projects. The reason why they come to the town asking for this type of support is to access state and federal funding. And those programs require, or don't require, there's a point system. And part of that point system is based on town contribution or town support. And that support is through a CEA. It's very specific in what it outlines that they get for points. So in the case of this project, the developer requested the full 3 points that they could get in the competitive process for Maine housing. And so again, these projects won't happen without some sort of government intervention. That's why you have the federal funding coming down to the state that they disperse, and they're partially looking for local community support. If it's important to us as a community that we want to make way for people that have relatively lower incomes and are seniors, and that's really a values decision for the community of, do we value that and do we want that, knowing that there's also a financial impact as well.
How you such a situation, this gentleman talked about people in Scarborough.
Yeah.
I mean, we all, I mean, I just take exception to a broad discussion about values when we're really talking about Scarborough. And why can't you say no to the CEA?
Yeah.
I haven't said that I'm gonna say yes. I'm just saying that, yeah, we could absolutely, the council votes first reading tomorrow, and depending on the will of the council, that the council could vote it down.
But
Well,
so to answer your question, Marvin,
I've been to all the council meetings, I've been to many of the finance committee meetings. And if the council were to not pass it through the second reading tomorrow, you could knock me over the feather. And I would, I mean, maybe not unanimously, but at any rate, so. And I didn't mean to stand up exactly.
it happens.
But now you're there.
As I said, I've been to a lot of council meetings. You know, and the forum here, I hope doesn't devolve into the council meeting forum where we're listening to you.
I'm trying not to, I
Well,
promise.
I take my hat off to you, but the first half hour.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
not to the council meeting.
Okay, I apologize if you felt like you were at a council meeting. It's hard to level set and to kind of get everyone kind of on the same base level information so that we can have an informed conversation. That was my attempt. I certainly didn't mean to sound like
Well,
you were at a council
I think
meeting.
if the people here want that kind of level set, they would come to town council meetings.
I agree with you, Marvin, except the concern I have, and I will host one of these forums. You can call me, you can email me, you can text me. I want to hear what people have to say, but I also want you to be a really well-informed constituency. And so we volunteer a lot of our time to become content area experts on things like CEAs. I don't know, what do I know about a CEA outside of my role as a town councilor? But I've spent a tremendous amount of time learning about it for you all so that I can then make an informed decision tomorrow night. We don't have to agree on the decision itself, but when I hear people conflate TIFs and CEAs, I want to inform. I want to make sure people understand exactly what a CEA is by definition, exactly what a TIF district is by definition. If that is not why you came this evening and you're disappointed and frustrated by my holding of this meeting, then I apologize, but you don't necessarily speak for everybody, and we can have a difference of opinion about how to run this forum.
The way, the communication you're talking about, meaning telling us about how CEAs work,
Not how they work, what they are.
what they are, you name it. I don't know what words it's about. That is something that happens at every council meeting. I've been to a lot. And again, they're all recorded. What I'm saying, what happens here doesn't happen a lot. Meaning, what this gentleman said, what this lady said, what the lady who wanted to eat dinner said. I mean, that's informing you. And I think we want to inform you.
Because you need to be experts on what the people think.
I agree.
Not just what your opinions are or what you've learned.
I agree with you.
And 3 years ago, we had this very same first forum. And I have a friend who wrote the town council today. And you know what she included in her letter? The letter she wrote almost to the day 3 years ago.
And the very first sentence of that letter was stop giving exemptions to developers for permits.
But-
And we haven't given a single exemption as a council.
It's not fair, not a technicality.
No, but I'm saying we have improved. We have made progress. We don't give exemptions. And this is not,
Talking about growth.
I'm gonna sit down.
Yeah.
Growth.
It's okay.
And I mean, I think, you know, it's really important.
I'm sorry.
No, I think you're doing a great job. I think
I
what we should do is, again, let's give everybody for the next half hour, just give you the floor. We can take notes. If people want to hear our perspectives, we can share them. If they want information, we can share them. But again, we really are here predominantly to listen. And so maybe we just,
Give everybody 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Wants to speak up, they can
Because
stand
that's-
up so that everybody gets a chance to say something.
I'm happy to do that. That sounds like a council meeting and us just taking public comment and I can do that tomorrow night as well.
maybe,
Part of the criticism that we've heard as a council is that you want to be answered when you ask a question, and that doesn't happen during public comment.
Yeah.
Miss Nina
You
McKee,
want them?
welcome to the conversation.
No, we are all here. We're all here listening.
Give him the microphone.
Yeah. Okay. We're all here in this room, and we have 5 leaders who have worked hard and are trying to let us talk. So I think it's important that we just sit and listen and talk. And then we are all working together. But I think it's very important for the council to listen to anyone, no matter what you're saying, because it's important for our town, and it's important for our communication, and it's important. And one thing, while I have the microphone, we have got to be careful about traffic. The traffic, any development is just gonna bring huge traffic, and that's ridiculous. So that's something I just wanted to add to my whole thing. But the fact is, we are all people, we're all in this room together, we're all concerned, and we have these wonderful people up here who have put in a lot of work and time into us. And so let's just talk, and let's listen, that's all I can say.
so do you wanna just? Dave, how would you like to proceed? Cause one thing I was thinking, cause we have so many. Yeah, one sec, like one thing we could do, and I don't know if that's what people wanna do, is we could, cause there's so many people here, I think that's part of the challenge. There's 5 counselors here, if we got into small groups, we might be able to hear, no, you wanna keep it big? Okay, that's fine, just throwing it out there. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
So, okay,
One suggestion.
I would love a
I think the people
suggestion.
have spoken.
Yes.
I think they want to speak.
Yes.
I think we just listen.
I will just listen. I will not engage. I will. I hope that I'm gonna turn it back over to you. I hope that you understand that my intent is genuine and that I am here to listen and engage, and that this is not to be combative or to correct, or I just want to do right by everybody, and I appreciate you being here. And so with that, Denise, why
Oh,
don't
no,
you?
sorry.
Oh,
Woman in the back.
I'm sorry, there's a woman in green. Thank you. And then Denise.
Give her the microphone so we
I'll
can hear.
be the mic guy. I'll be the mic guy.
She doesn't think she needs it.
Yeah, whoever has the mic has the floor.
Cameron from the Green Exec Circle. And I wanted to express my dissatisfaction with the, board, with the council, thank you, considering the, Marshwood, plan. I spoke against the planning board, when the planning board was considering it. I can't make the meeting tomorrow night. When I left Portland in 1984, moved to New York City, I lived in affordable housing. And I will describe the situation. I moved there, a 1-bedroom apartment was $2,500 a month. So needless to say, I couldn't afford that. So I lived in affordable housing, which meant I took the subway, the double R train, 2 hours one way to get to my job in Manhattan. I lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and I was paying $700 a month to rent a 1-bedroom,
1 bedroom in a 3 bedroom apartment that I shared with 2 other women. That's affordable housing. If people cannot afford to live in Scarborough, they can commute in from Buxton, from Standish, or wherever wherever they can spend their dollar wisely. It is not incumbent upon the taxpayers of Scarborough to fund every ne'er-do-well who wants to move into this city. And please do not insult our intelligence by trying to blame the fact that you've allowed in all of these Section 8, which is now, the new euphemism is workforce housing, into Scarborough because of a law that's not going to take place until next summer. Don't insult our intelligence. Thank you.
My name is Matthew and this is little Rosalie. And yeah, I just want to first thank everybody for coming. Special shout out to Nina holding it down with the good vibes. And yeah, I also want to thank the council for being here. I know that it's not easy to hold space and find the balance between trying to engage in the conversation and listening. And well, we all make mistakes, I think. I hope we can all imagine if we were in a similar but flipped position, how difficult that might be. So I just want to offer grace there. And similarly, I in general am in support of more affordable housing. I recently bought a house my partner bought a house. We live right down the street from Pleasant Hill Elementary. And we bought it, 5 years ago, would have been half the cost. And, I think there's so many challenges that face us all. We have elders who can barely afford to stay in their homes. We have people who can barely afford to buy a home. We have lots of different challenges. And I think I would just like to encourage us all as much as possible to try to come together to find the things we can agree upon and the things we can have dialogue about. I may not agree with all of you on policy, but I'm sure we can find some common ground. And especially around the aspects, like really understand the frustration. I come from Hawaii. My partner was born and raised here, but I come from Hawaii and I have seen what happens when overdevelopment happens. When things at the state, national level dictate policy that you can't control. And it's hard, it's really hard. And I applaud you all for feeling passionate and speaking up about it, trying to do something. I think as I try to engage in this conversation more going forward, I'd love to try to find people to meet with and work with to try to talk about the things that are actually practically possible. Hopefully we'll hear about moratorium at some point and what can and can't happen there when it comes to state laws and all these different things. Like, let's let our dreams of what we wish would be able to possibly be known, but then let's work together with what we can actually do and how we can move forward to try to, make Scarborough the place we want it to be going forward. All right.
Hi, I'm Janice Owen. Some you might know, one of the things I've done in this community is try to bring people together when they're fighting over something. And the question has come to mind, how many people would show up if we had asked them to be pro-growth people to show up?
What?
And I think that we've been communicating that majority of people in Scarborough are tired of the growth, want it to be slowed down. And I have to be careful to say, oh, you don't care about poor people, or, low-income housing or whatever. I think it's way our community. We want to be able to own our community, be able to have a voice in our community. And I compliment you for saying, let's come together on this. I've also been community development director for the state of Maine. And these are not easy issues. There's a lot of laws and there's a lot of ordinances. And we're not going to understand them. I didn't understand them all when I was doing it. But that's why we have a council and that's why we have a town staff to find out what it is we can do and we can't do. The minister's been hearing, I don't know where my moratoriums are now, like they used to be possible. So I think we have to be able to say, this is our town. This is where we want to go the direction. Right now, we want to kind of take a breath. to the extent that the law allows us to. And we want the people who are in charge to know that, to believe that, and to get the information that allows us to do that.
Okay, hi, everybody. My name is AMK. This is my mom, Pauline. We live right down the street here. I wish that I could be more engaged, but I am 24/7 with mom for almost 5 years. So, and I haven't actually had dinner. So just for her, I'm jealous. So I am so grateful that all of you guys are here, but I just am curious if you had the opportunity right now to vote on a moratorium for a certain period of time, so that, this is my big thing, and I mentioned this the other night, I don't hear the 10,000-foot view of what the people who live in this town actually really want it to be. What is the goal? And it's the developer wants to do this, and a developer came in and saw this plot of land, and then a nonprofit wants to come in and offer to do this. And if you do this for affordable housing, you can only do, like, what would really it look like if there were a moratorium for, say, a year? And we came up and said, okay, we don't want to pave over another 40% of the trees that are left in this town, or the marsh. We all live in a marsh. Someone mentioned it earlier. We live in a marsh. I talked to one of the guys in town hall last year, and I said to him, I see these for sale signs on Muzzy Road. Everything's available to sell to somebody. Anyway, highest bidder. It's a swamp. So what is the deal with I live on a swamp. I have mold, I have mildew. We live in affordable housing. And by the way, I have an issue with how we define affordable housing too. And the fact that, does that mean everything else is unaffordable? Why are we building unaffordable housing? But the residents of this town have all come together. And I think everybody here put their hand up and said, we'd like a moratorium. We are concerned about the growth. It doesn't matter what it is, affordable, non-affordable, CEAs, no CEAs, a private developer, a nonprofit. There is too much happening too fast with traffic, people trying to get back and forth to work and don't even go down the Gorham connector. So when you were talking about the three aspects, right, the zoning, I don't remember the other two, I didn't hear you say, we want to know what the best solutions are for the residents of the town. It's all based on money, profit, investment, how much money you're going to get back for all the emergency calls to the one-bedroom apartment. And I brought this up the other night for our friends here in our services, okay? Money doesn't make more EMTs. Money doesn't make more firemen and not firewomen. Money doesn't make more police officers. And these guys are going to be called out for all of these responses, especially in senior housing. Some of those people are getting calls because someone has just fallen and can't get themselves up, and they live by themselves, and they have to call 911 to get somebody to help them up and get back into bed. I know this because this happens to one of my neighbors. So I just fear that this town, so many people moved here to get out of the big city, a bedroom community that was high quality, and that there are factors happening that are not resident driven and goal driven for the quality of life we want. So I appreciate that. I just want to see if I wanted to miss anything. I do want to get really down with the affordable housing thing. I don't understand the definition. I think it's really bad to use it because it has a bad connotation for a lot of people. And then my other question, affordable housing, if it's affordable, if it's a model where the residents are only paying, say, a fraction of market rate, who's covering the difference? And what is the guarantee that that source of income is not going to go away? And those aren't going to be zipped right over to market rent apartments because HUD isn't going to do it anymore, or the state of Maine isn't going to do it anymore. Because, and I would quote the developer who we rent from, this used to be a lucrative business, affordable housing. And it's not anymore, not for the developers. And it happens just like that they turn around and say, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. So I really hope that you guys keep talking and you keep coming together. But I do believe that it's more important to listen to the residents and have it not be all financially and incentive driven what happens in this town, and not be driven by the state of Maine.
Here.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Williams, and I sent an email out this afternoon. John responded with you, and I barely had time to get your response, so thank you for that. It was hard to understand all your responses, but you know, there is the state law on the zoning, and somebody mentioned we changed that dedicated growth area. Let's manage it. Let's try to change those state laws. We're gonna hurt, I don't know, try to change them, let's fight against them. Because it seems like everybody here, we don't want these small units, I know you said, oh, well, what if we just, it'd be better than 20 single homes, I'd rather have the 20 single homes. Instead of small 20 single homes instead of these mega condominiums, that's my opinion. But I also have heard too in the past that some of these units are being sold to seniors, or they're 55 plus and restricted. But once those are sold, they can be sold to anybody. Is that true?
So in the case of this one, in the case of this project, there's a 45-year requirement that all those units have to be restricted for 45 years.
What about the downs?
So if it's a market rate, then there's no.
So once those are sold, to anybody. So it just, I don't think the rest of the Scarborough community realizes that. Right. I think that most of what I was saying, please read my email, it does stress a lot of different.
I'm happy to connect with you afterwards if you have questions.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I think the gentleman just asked, can we hear a little bit about moratoriums? So I don't know who's the expert on moratoriums. So I'm looking at Tom.
Right, certainly we have the right in our state law to impose moratorium. There are limitations in that regard, and most it would be for a 12-month period. There needs to be an articulable reason for that. I think there's any number of very rational and valid reasons we could articulate that. So it's entirely possible. I think, you know, a moratorium on all growth townwide might be a little more challenging, and that conversation may need to shape that a little sharper, if you will.
So the state decides whether or not we can have a building moratorium.
The state allows you to impose a moratorium for a limited period for a specific purpose, such as to study our infrastructure and whether it's able to support ongoing development would be one rationale.
Why does the state, I don't know, why does the state have anything to say about whether or not we actually build anything?
Well, there are private property rights. People own property and they have a right to develop and use that property within the rules and regulations. In our case, every community has land use restrictions where we decide what they can and can't do on that property, but private property rights rule supreme. And I think that's a piece that's often forgotten, that people have a right to use their property.
And a moratorium go on a referendum?
Certainly could.
And how would you put that on? Can the council
It could
decide?
be a citizen's petition to initiative to put it on a moratorium.
And can the council decide on their own
Certainly.
to do that?
Yeah, they've done it any number of times in the last couple of years in very specific areas and for very specific purposes.
Can you explain what a moratorium is then? Because the last time I went to a council meeting and they talked about a moratorium, they said, okay, now there's a moratorium. And then the next day, I think it was in the paper or one of the councilors told me, the moratorium is, we're only gonna have as many permits as we had last year. There won't be any more. And they called that a moratorium, which I almost fell down the stairs when I heard that.
Yeah, I think we're probably conflating a number of things here that what you described would not be a moratorium.
That's what they called it. They said we were gonna have a moratorium in Scarborough. This was years ago. And I was thrilled that they would stop and let everything catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
And the next day, it was, well, we're still gonna let out 400 permits next year. We're just not gonna let out 450.
Yeah, just to be clear, a moratorium is very specifically for short-term purposes to allow us time to study an issue or consider a matter so we can be more thoughtful and change the regulations if that study and that analysis suggests that's what we should do.
Any other questions on the moratorium? Before we go into a different topic. So,
Yeah.
That's how many signatures, I don't know.
20% of the,
Well, Mr. Hall just said the council can do it.
yes, she's asking about, I think she's asking specifically about a citizens referendum,
Right.
which has a very
Right there.
prescribed process. Yep. Yep. 20% gubernatorial election.
Not the same voter. That's the number.
It's a heavy lift though, it's a big number, it's 3,000 something, and it has to be done in 20 days.
Is there a
So-
council person that would want to put that forward so we wouldn't have to do that?
Well, it has to be a majority vote from the councilors to do it. They don't.
What is the worst thing, what would be the worst outcome, okay? If we decided that we'd like to have a moratorium, what would be like the worst thing that could happen? I mean, is it really a negative impact overall to us as a community if we had a moratorium? And then, because like I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that like, you know, like we're talking about paving over the marshes and adding all this development. And the guy that I spoke to in the town, you know, I wish I remembered who it was. You know, I said to him, how can people be selling off? And you were saying private property, they can do what they want. And I said, but they're in a marsh. We have mold, we have mildew, we have water that comes up to our foundation, all this stuff. And he said, well, we just have to warn them. Basically, if we sell the property, we let them develop it with all the information. You're building on a marsh, so if anything happens, you're liable, then we can let them go ahead and build. It's almost like zoning doesn't matter, because as long as you warn them that they're on a marsh, then it's okay. So like, you know, if we have a moratorium, we do the environmental impact study, the gal that was here before, I mean, our creek is completely clogged now with cat and nine tails, our culverts don't work, the water goes over the road going into our development. And there's tons of development around us, so it's never there before, it was all forest. And we didn't have those problems 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So in terms of the least environmental impact, and again, quality of life for people, you don't want people to build on a marsh if in 10 years, those apartments are gonna be having mold and mildew issues. But right now, nobody cares about that, because they're either getting tax credits, or they're getting some other fees, or some other tax breaks. And how does the town benefit from that, you know? So what's the worst thing that could happen if we did have a moratorium? And we were able to say, okay, everybody, we're come together, these are the issues that you're worried about, and we have to figure out how much physical part of this town can actually be paved over and still retain our quality of life. How many cars are we gonna allow to leave for work between 8 and 8:30 in the morning, or whatever it is, and figure out what makes sense.
That's a good segue. I was just going to ask about traffic. Sounds like traffic is a very important thing to people here. And so, and I don't know if this is the forum to ask about if you guys actually have answers. But I remember being with the planning board, and they're talking about FedEx coming in at.
Oh, don't even get me going on that.
We're going to have to double the size of that intersection.
Oh, bring that.
Yeah, they just double the triple the something that we got. So with FedEx coming. So, sounds like they talked about it, they have a plan, like, so traffic, infrastructure, gentlemen, fire, and police, you know.
I would add medical too.
And medical,
We
sure.
moved here in 2023.
And mail.
It took
They don't do the mail.
one year to get we applied to all the, medical institutions that we could for a GP.
Oh, yeah.
It took 1 year for them to get back with suggested doctors, and all of the ones that were suggested to us were people who were still in their internship. And that was scary.
Yes.
I think there's a pressure on that.
Absolutely.
Hold on, Nina's trying to use her loudest projection voice.
Yeah.
How many do you want?
Maybe we have to ask you the opposite from you.
It's amazing.
And this is a safe place, like no judgment. Yeah.
What is your purpose? What is it for? Can you be
yeah.
specific?
Oh, specifically, a moratorium on growth. on any,
And what are you going to do during that year? How are you going to make it better? How are you going to?
well,
give
I'm not on the
input bills
council.
Later. What are you proposing that the
No,
council?
that's a good thing. So maybe the council can say what we can do on a moratorium.
It's to answer
Okay.
those questions.
Study traffic.
We need it, we need a.
Well, first,
We want a moratorium, let's.
I do want to address the traffic question, because it's also something that's on our agenda tomorrow. So the town has been for the past year and a half doing a townwide traffic assessment. And so we do have a list of prioritized roads and areas that we need to work on. We have a transportation committee, and so what they're gonna be spending probably the next 6 months on is really trying to prioritize those different traffic improvements that we want to put in our capital budget, so that we can start to make sure that we can fund those projects. Also, when there's a development like the FedEx one that you mentioned, again, there are triggers at the state level based on like how many trips they create that may require them to do traffic improvements. And so the FedEx one, the one that you mentioned, I think because of they hit a certain threshold.
Just, can I get?
This, oh, sorry. The state would kind of dictate what type of improvements they would have to make, and so. That's another safeguard for when there is a project that has significant traffic. They might have to implement what's called a TMP, and that requires specific projects that the developer has to put in place.
That's really subjective, John, let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean.
That's the state, I don't know what they do.
We've gone and sat outside the Presumpscot FedEx facility and we have watched the line of trucks. And I call BS on FedEx and what they said their trips were gonna be. FedEx is in our backyard. I have bought this, as John knows, in April, that the whole town council knows. I've been fighting for 3.5 years. Trucking facilities were not supposed to be in our neighborhood. But the town council years ago decided they were smarter than long-range planning, who spent a heck of a lot more time on it. But I'll get off my FedEx tangent.
Do we wanna?
Can I-
On the moratorium?
Can I say something about moratoriums, just to kind of give, I don't want the mic. Just to kind of give a little bit different perspective, which is if I'm asked as a counselor, would you support a moratorium? To Tom's point, like, I need to know what we're going to accomplish. 12 months goes by really, really fast, especially in the government world. And so, like, what would we actually be able to accomplish in 12 months? But when I think about the negatives, I really fundamentally struggle with taking away people's personal property rights, telling everyone in this town, blanket, you can't sell your property, you can't, your property is no longer an asset to you for the next year, makes me very uncomfortable. And then there is also the economic development that comes from building. And there are a lot of laborers and a lot of people who are contractors and plumbers and electricians that do a lot of work in Scarborough. And so to me, this idea that we're just going to shut down that economic opportunity for people is just something to consider. It's something to think about. And it's not just for me as simple as let's just pull all the permits and close the doors for a year.
Let's let the people who haven't had a chance to speak, try and speak
My
first.
name's Diane Mills. I grew up in Scarborough, class of 1964. I just want to say, from all of my classmates, anybody, myself, we are losing open space. That's what we are. Why we love Scarborough, why I never left. Okay? This is what I'm seeing. And I'm hearing from others. I want to stay here. I want the open space. I value it. I have people wanting to buy my property, land all the time. I value it. I love it. Okay? And I think there are other people like me. Am I right? Absolutely.
Yeah, just to the open space thing, just to share, we do have a new open space plan where we started to identify where we want to conserve land throughout the community.
We have donated land to the land trust.
Yeah, and that's something many people can
And
do.
I really, really support it,
Yeah.
100%.
I really
Let's
do.
see who hasn't had a chance to.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
I suggested this one, I don't know. I
Can
suggested.
you hear him in the back?
Because Mr. Fellows already accused me of hollering at April.
No,
I suggested
nobody-
one, I just suggested a while back, and I have suggested again tonight. That land where Marshview is, and the land next to it that the nail salon wants to be built. I suggest the land trust buy that land and put it in the conservation library. I think that's an excellent solution to, it eliminates your proposal of saying, you know, what may be there is worse. So that, to me, that solves a whole ton of issues. It's next to the marsh. It solves. But that's, thank you.
Anybody that's going to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chris Ream, I'm from Horseshoe Drive. Lived in Scarborough now for 22 years. Longest I've lived in any one place. I grew up in New Jersey. The reason I live in Scarborough is because New Jersey is a great place to be from. That said, when I grew up in New Jersey, I grew up on a horse farm with Horseshoe. Where I lived is now nothing but McMansions and Banana Republic. And really good development with a tax base. And look, we have a medical campus. And we used to have a nice open space by the river, but it was so valuable property. If you can smell water in New Jersey, you can't afford to buy it. We have this town, when I moved here, originally from Massachusetts 22 years ago, I was shocked. We had looked at living anywhere near Boston. Forget about it, guys. Never gonna happen with regular person. I'm a fish guy. I'm gonna see through business. That said, thank you for doing this project. You're doing. I'm pleased that our town council is working hard on this. I feel well represented in Scarborough. I've lived other places. I am active in government on a state level and with national issues with the industry I'm in. No easy solutions. Moratorium, gotta be really specific, as the gentleman said. It's not a magic cure-all. Property rights are great. We can't let. If somebody's gonna donate land to the land trust, you gotta buy it at fair market value. And if we really value what we have in Scarborough around our marsh, we're gonna have to pay for it. We're gonna have to raise money through town, and the Scarborough Land Trust does a great job. They can buy only so much. They bought a lot. We've done really good work here. A lot less to do. Look out this window, you can still see vacant properties on US 1 that are gonna get bought, sold. Can't say no to that. It's on US 1, guys. Can we do a better job of keeping things off the street and not making a mega mall? Maybe just something respectful. We're doing a pretty good job. So far, guys, we're doing a pretty good job. I wish with the towns, we managed to get our town together and get a pool and an ice rink. We're the best town in Maine, I think. That's why we live here. We were supposed to go. We have neighbors. You look at Falmouth, you look at Cape Elizabeth. We can do better, guys. We can do a lot better. And I know the Rivera family well. God bless them, they bought it. We could have had a casino, holy cow, right? Forget that. But that said, I'm here to learn today. I've learned that we get something 400, 600 houses that were minimum. The state wants us to build is that many units. We can't support that, guys. That's not a thing. We gotta figure something out, whether we change our rules over the long term. We limit the zones in it. To your point with having complex areas. That's great. And having workforce housing, also really important. I think with the whole affordable and workforce housing, somebody said, what's affordable housing? I got news for you. I could never buy my house now at the price that I can get for it now, guys. Most of us can't. People are staying in their houses. The tax says, so affordable is what's really affordable. And my question would be, actually, it's not a question. Throw in my statement out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So the one thing that gives me pause when it comes to moratoriums and the piece of growth, and I know, again, it's challenges that it's usually that new development that helps us keep a stabilized tax rate. So when you look at communities like Cape Elizabeth and how much their tax rate goes up, it's partially due to the fact that they don't have new revenues coming in through new development. So I would be curious from the community to understand if we were to moratorium or really slow things down, are you willing to pay more in your taxes? Because that's likely what it's gonna take. And so that's the trade-off where if you want less development, we're gonna have to pay for things because things aren't gonna get cheaper. It's not like the salaries for police officers are gonna stay stagnant. It's not like we're gonna have other capital needs that we're gonna have to fund. We want a pool, like, part of that gets paid for partially by the new development. And so again, that's a question is, are you willing?
That's just, I have.
I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I'm saying it's all.
All I have to say is, the perfect example is Freeport. Freeport said, well, we'll develop all around LOB and get all this business district and we'll develop. The taxes go through the roof. Portland has the highest tax rate in the state of Maine, I'm sure. And they have the most development. The more development you get, the higher your taxes are. You can say, have no development that they're gonna pay taxes.
That's
But
right.
for some reason, I don't know how it happens. It does make sense. But for some reason, when you do, it costs more to support them. You know, when they're here for the services and stuff, which it doesn't make sense, but that's really how it really turns out in real life for some reason. I don't
Well,
know.
I think that's where it depends on the type of development. Because that makes a big difference, right? Like if again, like I said, there are certain development styles that do cost money, and then there are some that don't cost as much money or that frankly operate at a profit. And so that's where, again, as part of our growth strategy, it's really trying to balance all of that to keep taxes low. And again, Scarborough is probably the only community in the state of Maine. I would bet anybody $20, maybe $10, that you can't find, you can't find another community that has less than a 3% tax rate almost year over year. And that is partially due to one, really good management around the how we manage the TIFs and CAs, but also how we manage the federal funds during COVID. But like that is part of it. And so again, if people are willing to spend a little bit more on traffic infrastructure, things like that, then again, I think we can do that. But I also worry that when push comes to shove and we slow growth, that we won't be getting those things that people are saying that they don't want to spend the money. No, it's a reality.
That's a scare tactic.
It's not a scare tactic, it's the reality.
I think it's short term. You don't know it's a reality because we haven't been there.
I think it's short.
You can look at other communities and see what they're doing.
I think
mean,
it's short term versus long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
Thinking. I think your short term thinking is perfectly sound, but our counselor over there, Scott, talked about longer term thinking, where that didn't work in Portland and Freeport. And a moratorium is a you know, panacea. It's not something that's going to cure it, but you have these questions as to how you want to look at things. Is it working? Doesn't every slice of Scarborough? I don't think so.
Yeah. So moratorium, you guys asked the question of what our concerns were, so
Sue has her hand up.
Sue?
Yeah, I mean, if we had a moratorium, our 10-year average would certainly go down. We have 0 for one of those years. And if you look at how many building permits have been issued, this is from a workshop that the Scarborough Housing Alliance had with the town council. That Scarborough has been issuing housing permits at twice the rate of Cumberland County. So if we had a moratorium for a year, it would give the other towns in Cumberland County a chance to kind of catch up where we are. Maybe let them do what they should be doing as well.
And a couple more points I wanted to make and then chime in on that idea. This LD 1829 that just got signed into law, basically, it's the Wild West. That if developers are in a growth area, designated growth area, they can build, you know, because the state is looking for more housing. But the good news is our House Speaker, Ryan Fecto, and you can find this online, News Center, Maine, that they did an interview and he's now looking at states, all the communities in the state or the state to do a data study to see who's building and then who's not. And in this interview, he called out Scarborough as the community that's doing more than their fair share. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. And we are doing more than our fair share. We have 10% affordable housing, and I could rattle off all of the development, but I won't, I'll save time.
Another thing I wanted to call out, and this is really about tomorrow night, but in the, so with the CEA for Marshu Terrace, you cannot issue a CEA unless the property is in a TIF district, which is tax increment financing district. Thank you.
Doing great.
So so now what the town is putting forward is they're gonna create a TIF district, so Marsview Terrace can get a CEA. And it's not just their property, it's a swath of Dunstan that there was, conversation about that more than 10 years ago, when they're dusting it off and bringing it back to accommodate South Portland housing. And I will read from the draft TIF proposal that is gonna be at the meeting tomorrow night. It says, I'm not gonna read all of it, but it says about South Portland specifically. The town council reserves its right to enter into future credit enhancement agreements with any party. This is about the Dunstan TIF, not just about the Marsview. Any party that owns or develops property in the district, so long as the credit enhancement agreement is the subject of a public hearing held by the town council and the council votes to approve such agreement. Such credit enhancement agreements may include a reimbursement percentage of up to 100% of the increased assessed value of the developer owner's property for up to the full remaining term of the district at the council's discretion. Further, subject to the approval of the town council, the town is considering a credit enhancement agreement with South Portland Housing Development Corporation to provide for a split, not 50%, not 75%. This language says a split, which hasn't been explained, of the TIF revenues on their portion of the district, more specifically defined as a tax map. So my point is, it's not just one senior housing development at Marsview Terrace. It's impacting that entire area, and then it's an invitation from the town for developers to raise their hand, because we'll give you up to 100% of your tax bill back.
How many acres?
For John could probably, I can't answer that. I haven't gotten that far. Yeah, so, and one more point, we're talking about affordable housing. So there's affordable housing, there's what's affordable for, people who have their houses forever and are trying to stay in them. There's senior housing, there's workforce housing. And now I'm looking at, I think, Nick, I saw Nick here. I want to say you presented this, or it says produced by the Housing Alliance, but I'm imagining you did all of this work, maybe not. So here there's a figure about workforce housing, which usually refers to developments that are, this was presented June 4th, usually refers to developments that are income limited to people who are making between 80 and 120% of the average median income, and that would be for the greater Portland area. This is for workforce housing, not senior. It says in Scarborough, this would be between 103,840 and 155,760 for a family of 4. So again, this is not for senior housing, but my point is, how many seniors on a fixed income that are trying to stay in their home have a fixed income of $158,000?
Before we go to,
Like, just, one more thing, I was just on the moratorium that we're talking about, that what if it was just on large multi-units? Allow single unit homes and allow small multi-units, but perhaps on the larger ones, those mega ones. Some of those in Scarborough Downs, I was counting, they're holding 30 to 50 condos, and that's a lot in one building. So perhaps we can be called on that.
so yeah, I think to the point raised earlier, that there's many ways you could slice and dice a moratorium if you wanted to do it. Like I know Wells more recently did a moratorium on new subdivisions in a very specific area where there was traffic concerns. So again, it's not impossible, it just to everyone's point, that we would have to be clear on what it is, what we want to know, and so there's really many ways we could look at that, and so I think that's just something that we can probably further discuss. Any
Status?
thoughts?
Hi, everyone, Stanis Roberts, for the North Scarborough. There's a few things that I want to touch on, and first is I find myself having very conflicting feelings around this, and I think people make some really good points. So before I go to that, I just want to say thank you so much to the council for hosting this. Just real quick, my personal experience, my first engagement with council was that incredibly scathing email that I wrote to them. Where I was so curious, and the council took a lot of time to really engage on a particular issue that I was so angry about, and I know what it feels like to be so angry at a group of government officials that are making decisions about something that's deeply affecting me personally. And I do want to say that I found many of these counselors who are really putting in so much time to be working with good faith and wanting to do what's best for our town. We may have different opinions on things, but we're really working to try to make this town as best as possibly can. Okay, so there's a couple of statistics that I find interesting. First is 1950 or 1940 actually. Population of Scarborough was 2,800. The population of Portland was 77,000. Fast forward to 2020. Last census 2020, population of Portland is now 68,000. It's dropped. And population of Scarborough is now 24,000, 22,000, I think, in 2020. So Scarborough has almost increased in size by tenfold, while Portland, for example, has actually decreased. And why is that? It's because people have increasingly moved out into and followed a pattern of growth that's suburban. But that pattern of growth is also one pretty awful for the environment, because we slowly encroach on more and more open spaces people have talked about. And two, it's also fiscally, it's fiscally challenging, because a town, the reason why like our property taxes have not gone down with the amount of development that's occurred is often because when you have that sprawling growth, it costs that much more to bring enough sewer out to Higas Parkway, to do so many infrastructure things to service a very spread out population. And so in that sense, I am very, I do think that Scarborough, we don't want to see Scarborough lose all of our open space through development. I think that's something that probably everyone here is very concerned about. And with all that development that's occurred too, has housing gotten cheaper? It's not. It's so much more unaffordable now than it was 50 years ago. I think for those of us that are from Maine and from this area, like generationally, there's this feeling that it's hard to make a living in Maine, and it's a really wonderful place to live, and that's why we live here. That's why we love it. But the other problem with that is that because it's so desirable, people who make a fortune in cities like New York and Boston then come here and buy up a lot of the housing that we end up creating through that development. So we're not like a closed market when it comes to affordable housing. So I feel really conflicted in that way. When I think about development though, and I think about our growth management ordinance where we have a cap on the number of permits that we allow. And I see a development that wants to put 50, I think it's 50 units of senior housing on a spot that is already paved over in a parking lot and flea market. I think maybe that is a good thing because it means 50 less cul-de-sac development somewhere else that's taking that many acres, that many more acres of our open space and concentrating that development right there. And then demographically, this is another thing. Our birth rate in Maine is about 1.45 people for every woman, basically. So a population that's sustaining itself has a birth rate of 2.1 per woman.
Reproductive female.
Reproductive female, yeah, thank you. So
You're holding a microphone, you gotta say.
So we are demographically, we have a rapidly aging population, and we're also probably close to our peak population growth. We're very close to becoming what Italy, what Japan, what other advanced economies are right now, which is a population that is no longer growing, but is actually starting to decrease. That's probably happening in the next 30, 40 years here in the United States, and especially here in Maine. So do we, for affordable housing, do we really need to keep sprawling out and growing and making more and more housing and building out our infrastructure, which is enormously expensive when we are potentially having in a few decades a declining population? So when I see with our aging population, I see the need for senior housing. I think most of us probably have relatives. My grandmother was in a trailer. She wasn't going to be able to stay there. And in Gorham, they have the Inn at Village Square. It's an invested housing. She got in there, and it was the best thing that happened to her, and it was affordable. And so there is a need for that senior housing here. So I find myself very conflicted with this because I do see a lot of benefits to Marshview, despite being very sympathetic and agreeing with the expression that so many people here have that we can't keep growing unsustainably. So I'll move on. That's my piece.
Thank you, Stanis. We have,
Before I go back to the people who have spoken, is there anyone else who has something that they might want to say?
and we have about 15 minutes just for time check.
I'm
Marie.
really short and sweet, hopefully. My name is Marie Usher and I live here in Scarborough down near the Dunstan Corner area. And I don't really have a problem necessarily with the housing going in, but I am totally opposed to the location. It is so congested there. You take your life in your hands to cross, like we want to ride our bikes to the Eastern Trail. And to cross Route 1 is really difficult. And I would never do it with my grandchildren. And so I don't want our Route 1 to be like Massachusetts when you're going down Route 1 by the airport. You're thinking, oh my God, this development is like, and I think I heard that the housing would be, they were asking for an ordinance where it would be closer to Route 1. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's okay.
Because I think the apartments over on Mussey are crazy close to the road and the quality of life for everybody. The people living there and the people driving by is awful. So I'm just saying, the the location. There's no nice traffic light to come out of apparently, and people have talked about, a friend of mine wrote to me, she knew I was coming and said, a rotary. And I'm thinking, oh my God, a rotary, I would die. I think we would all die in that location, okay? And so right now you have on Route 1, turning into, I'm driving down Route 1 and going north, and people are turning left into the donut, the Holy Donut, into the right out lane because they don't want to go to the traffic light. And so I'm just like, please think about that, the quality of life for everybody in the area. I agree with open space. That's really important too. And you know what? Thank you so much, because being a town councilor, I think, is a thankless job. And I really appreciate your time.
None of the top,
I don't think you haven't had a chance.
It's not a walkable neighborhood. It is not a walkable neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Karen Moulthrop, and I am third generation in Scarborough. We've never left. It used to be a wonderful place to live. We had farms, we had land, but because of the taxes, the seniors that own the property have to sell their land, and that's what's wrong. Seniors should be getting a break for their taxes. And we had one 3 years ago, but it was for anybody making $1 million to $50. It should have been like $50,000 or an income of 30,000 or whatever. But the people that can afford $1 million homes and all these things, they got the credit. So we had our taxes frozen for 1 year, and it was wonderful. I mean, our taxes keep going up, and we get growth coming into this town. And the seniors, they're either dying or moving out because they can't afford the property taxes down here, and they're going to be selling to out-of-staters. I live in Pine Point. It's all rent, it's renter point. People are buying from out of state. They own 2 or 3 buildings, houses, rents, cottages. I mean, I don't even know half the neighborhood now. And it used to be a nice small community. And on the Beach Ridge Road, we own land. There's houses being built. And we've got to table for the seniors for our taxes. I mean, that's the greatest thing right there. We don't own our property. We can't do what we want on our property. We have to get permission. So I think that we should be giving the seniors a little bit of more help than the people that are making money from Portland or other jobs in the area. But the seniors, they can't afford to keep their land. And it's tragic, because Scarborough was really nice. In 1964, I'm telling you, we had a ball. But now you can't even go out and ride your bike. I mean, you're gonna get hit, can't go walking, you're gonna get picked up or get raped or whatever. I mean, it's terrible. And, okay, that's it.
My name is Nancy Jones, and I live on the Broad Turn Road, and I was just thinking back on the amount of accidents and even deaths on the road. And I wonder, with the transportation study, if that's part of it, if they're looking at the amount of accidents, the amount of deaths. Just a few weeks ago, a driver went off the road on Broad Turn, ended up in the culvert right next to our driveway, and thankfully he only hit shrubs. If he had hit a pole, if he went off just a little bit further down the road, it would have been a different story. But a motorcyclist died on Broad Turn. I think that was within a year ago. A few years back, I'm trying to remember if it was before, maybe things like before or after COVID. A father was driving down Broad Turn and went off the road, and he died. A bicyclist on Route 1 right near Dunstan Corner was killed. So there's lots and lots of accidents and deaths, and I'm just wondering if that's in the transportation study. I really hope it is. And 25 years ago, I easily could ride my bike down to Pine Point Beach and did frequently. But no way I could do that now. And I know they talked about bike paths on Broad, but that never happened. So yeah, and I've heard that for 20 years. That's part of the transportation study. But I do hope they really look at the amount of accidents and deaths, because it really is high.
Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak? I know there are a few people who didn't have a chance to.
Well, Noby, everybody, hi. I just have a specific factual question for you, John, and the council. Is this mic on? Do you know?
It is, but it's sensitive.
Are you, when you do your study, are you trying to get an idea of how many of the people on Route 1 actually live here? And how many live in Saco and Biddeford?
Oh, you're talking about transportation through the town versus
because-
residents that use the road.
It always strikes me, we all know this, in the rush hours, it's really a parking lot, we know that. And of course, the more cars you have, right, you're gonna have more accidents. There are accidents all over the place. But I have always wondered why people can't be incentivized through tolls or whatever. Unless they actually live here to get on the turnpike. You know,
Because the turnpike charges a toll.
right, and so,
Route 1 does that.
right, so what if you,
Exactly right, right,
what if you incentivize, what if you made that if you lived in a nearby suburb, you got no toll or much less toll? Yes, you have to, money talks, nobody, I get that, but I always wonder, like, do all these people, are they all coming from the towns? Maybe they are, but I don't think so.
Some kind of statistic.
Yeah, Tom, can you say
Yeah,
something?
it's important to know that we're obviously part of a region, there's things happening around us, just go down over the line in Saco, to see what's happening along that strip of the line. At any point in time, 30% of that traffic is starting outside of town and going somewhere outside of town, just past it.
Right.
So we're very much a crossroads in that regard.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big percentage. That's almost a third. Sure. What if you know, I don't know what it would take, but it seems but this is like, that's my question.
You know, it's got a really good point there for me, because I'll give you my personal view, is, it breaks me to pay $1 to go to benefit. I take Route 1 just because, I mean, I hate it, and I don't wanna do it, but I don't wanna pay the $1.
Yeah, well, one of the things, Karen Martin also ran a study that actually showed in Scarborough, average commuting times went down. But I don't know if that has to do with the fact that more people are working from home, but at least in Scarborough.
Probably during COVID.
It's been more recent than that. And then the other piece about Route 1, couple of things that are happening, and this will be like a long-term thing, not something that will be done right away, but the long-range planning committee is looking at the TBG district, which is the zoning that pretty much goes along Route 1 to figure out what we want to do there. And again, the transportation study, all of that was part of looking at that. Again, some of that might figure out either you widen Route 1, you shrink Route 1. Because one thing that some of the communities do, like you see like Saco, when you drive down into their downtown, it's like one lane each way, and that kind of disincentivizes people from going down. So it's also like there could be something in the future. Sorry, I want to give this woman a chance to speak.
Yes. Kathy Stoddard, Burnham Road. What would happen if you didn't give tips or CVAs? Developers wouldn't come. Do we need a moratorium or just stop giving all these tax free development?
Going back to people who haven't spoken, but if you do want to speak.
We have about 5 minutes left, everybody.
The state of Maine is planning to raise the marsh on Route 1.
Raise the road.
I was feedback of that, and they said that funding is already there, 100% funding. That we're going, but that's my understanding. The last time I heard that, and then when we started doing that project and so Route 1. So that's also gonna be a nightmare, if that, they are approved, but I thought it was funding already there.
Unfortunately, with the,
John,
grant that was, unfortunately, the grant that was gonna fund that was put on pause.
Okay,
And so it's paused.
I don't know, this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Larry?
I don't know if you heard me in the beginning, but I'm brand new to this, so. I mostly. And I'll still show up tomorrow night. But mostly before we ran out of time, I just want to take a minute and say thank you all for coming. As I was running for this seat, the rate of growth and the impacts were the overwhelmingly most significant comments that I heard. And I think there's a lot of great ideas, and all I can do is say, stay involved. I've been to a number of these types of forums, and there's been 7 people there. And so the best way we can impact this is for you all to stay involved, keep the pressure on, come up with good ideas, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Likewise, we thank you.
On that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us, because I think Larry did a really great job. I'm so appreciative of everyone taking time out of a beautiful summer evening to be here. You can email the town council at towncouncil@scarboroughmaine.org. You can email me at aseider@towncouncil.scarboroughmaine.org. The entire council gets those council emails, keeping them coming. We will do more of these forums. I really, truly, this fills my cup to engage with our residents. It's why I ran for public office. It's why I do this sometimes thankless job. And so again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.